You're listening to Business Radio Talkers.fm. My name is Wayne Buckler, and joining me today in conversation is Tom Zorde, founder and board chair of Perth Internet of Things Communications Network. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Wayne. And can I just say I'd like to take this opportunity to commend you on your efforts to help the many entrepreneurs and business owners get their message heard. So good on you.
It's our pleasure, and we do talk to a few. And my first question is always, tell me what the Perth Internet of Things Communications Network is or does, and who do you do it for?
Yeah, sure. So, well, it's all for the community. That's the main thing. And what I've done is run a project outside of work and corporate environments to encourage the greater workforce of Perth, Western Australia, to get involved in an emerging technology called the Internet of Things to help them future-proof their skill sets and mindsets of what's possible so that we have an employable market in the future going forward.
Now, the Internet of Things is something that maybe the more technical end of the audience are familiar with. General audience, though, have probably heard of it because it gets talked about a lot, but rarely does it get explained. Can you fill us in on what it is? If we're on Reddit, it'd be explained like I'm 5.
Yeah, sure, of course. So, Internet of Things is one of many emerging technologies that different people will have heard of. It is, to explain it simply, we're all familiar with the Internet and how we as people can communicate over the Internet. So that might include obviously browsing web pages, sending email, communicating on social media networks, but of course also conducting transactions, which could be your online banking. So that's the Internet of People, if you want to think of it like that. And the Internet of Things is in the concept of machines doing similar types of communications with people or with other machines. So this could be sensors or robotic actuators, so a robotic door or a robotic tool, also having access to the internet to be able to do transactions and move information forwards and backwards to communicate. That's Internet of Things, yes.
Tom, what are you doing to help companies prepare? What steps do they need to take?
Sure. So the community that I run here in Perth, we call the Perth Internet of Everything community. That's spun off our communications network project. But the community is 1,400 people, so we've got quite an active and engaged community of people who want to learn and play with Internet of Things. They come from all walks of life, so there's no specific demographic of techies or business owners. They're just really people who've realised that this emerging technology is going to change the way the work is done and the way we live. And I think we've probably all heard in the news that there's information about Internet of Things perhaps automating jobs, so displacing people, or even using them as for surveillance and stealing people's privacy. And although those are easy media spin-offs and stories that you can have on top of this technology, they're also a very minority, and then there's always risks, of course, but the benefits far outweigh the risks. So what I wanted to do was, I guess, launch a project, which we've done, to minimise the barrier to people learning about this innovation. And what we wanted to do is help people shift their mindset away from automation and away from monitoring, which are the scary parts of IoT, towards the capabilities that IoT provides. And what that is one, it provides you awareness of everything around you. So it's almost a superpower that you know that information or events are happening, in the far reaches of your environment and also within your body. So this could be from sensors within your bodies to sensors within your house, sensors within your city and the broader regions, right into, even outer space. If you know what's happening around you, you have eyes and ears everywhere, then you can use that information to actually predict events before they happen, similar to the way we can forecast and predict weather changes. So that's another big capability. And then really the question is, what can people in organisations and businesses do if they have these sorts of capabilities, true value? So yes, there's some risks with IoT, but there's also some really great benefits that people need to be aware of. And I think there'll be a lot of jobs in the future built on top of this platform. And it's about getting people ready and getting their mindset ready of what's possible and get them thinking about what's possible with these sorts of capabilities.
And Tom, how long have you had the community organisation running in Western Australia?
So the Perth Internet of Everything community is a larger community in Perth. We've been running for 2 years, starting off with meetups and having presenters help educate what IoT is all about. We've now grown to 1,400 people over 2 years. So with that large community, we thought, let's start something a bit more practical and build something with a spin-off project that we can all use to extend our learning further. So to prepare that broader community with a mindset and skill set for the future, where technology is going to be embedded in everything, everywhere. I had an idea in May to help this course, and what I did is I sent an expression of interest to summon volunteers to work on a 5-month project, and that project is what we call the Perth IoT Communications Network. Mm-hmm. The project, we set out to encourage experiential learning by lowering the cost barrier to build and connect IoT solutions. And then that would allow us to learn through hands-on exposure rather than just reading news about IoT or reading literature about it. We used a platform called the Things Network, which is a long-range, low-power wireless communications network. Mm-hmm. And this platform what's unique about it is it's distributed amongst the community itself. So what that means is the telecommunications equipment, which is essentially like a wireless gateway that you would have in your home, but for IoT devices, they would be hosted and operated by the community members themselves for the community. So there's no telecommunications company involved. It's a community-owned, community-run distributed network. Now, what's also unique about these long-range, low-power devices is each one can support thousands of IoT connections, unlike a home Wi-Fi network, which would probably only handle, maximum 20 devices. Yeah. Also, what's unique about them is they're very long range. So a home Wi-Fi network is probably going to reach about 20 meters. These long-range, low-power gateways reach about 10 kilometers. So it's a huge differentiator, and we actually don't need that many gateways to cover all of Perth. So that was the vision we had in May. So for anyone wanting to connect things to the internet in Perth, we've now been able to reduce the cost barrier for connectivity to zero by deploying a free-to-use open communications network across the broader Perth metropolitan area. As I said, it's similar to an open Wi-Fi network for your mobile phones or tablets, but it's for connected sensors and robotic actuators. So an actuator is like a open-closed sort of switch or motor. Previously, previous to now, any IoT device around Perth would pretty much have to connect via the internet through a data plan. So that's your traditional 3G, 4G sort of data plan that you have on your phone, or via a traditional Wi-Fi network, which is probably what most people have in their homes or businesses. These methods both consume a lot of power and they have a limited range. So in the case of 3G, 4G, it can get very expensive, obviously, because a SIM card will cost you $10 a month. If you needed 1,000 IoT devices, that would be $10,000 a month, which is not very practical for the average entrepreneur who's wanting to learn about IoT and how they can apply it to their circumstances.
It is interesting because I've been around the internet since before it was steam powered. In the days before what we now consider to be email, electronic mail was run on bulletin boards, and bulletin boards were all dial-up connections, they weren't real time. And you had to have one every local phone call distance away, otherwise you had to pay STD rates. So you would go out and find someone 30 or 40 kilometres away from your town who was willing to host a modem for you, because then it was only a local phone call. And
that's right.
It sounds a lot like that feeling again. The gateways that you're putting in sound like extraordinary devices. What sort of cost is involved in a gateway?
They're actually not that expensive. So there are different types depending on obviously how powerful you want them and whether you want them hosted outdoors or indoors. So like any sort of radio communications equipment, the higher you put it and the more powerful it is, the longer range you'll get from it. And obviously they can be more weatherproof than others. So internal gateways range from around $300 to $500, and you can actually also build them yourself, which would probably bring the cost right down to about $150. And then external gateways range in the range of about $1,000 to $2,000, and can have other capabilities, so they can be used for relaying through 4G if you're near a 4G tower, or an Ethernet cable, or they can just capture the data and process it there and then if you have compute facilities available. So the idea is these gateways are hosted either within the home or within the business premise at a high point.
Tom, do you see the network growing to where it is, saturation coverage of Perth?
Well, interesting things happened when we ran this project. So I guess I can talk also about how we were able to achieve this project, because we did it with no money. We did it with no equipment or resources up front. We did it with no business premises. We did it with volunteers, so it's volunteer time. People are doing it in their spare time. And that's an interesting story in itself. And what we were able to do is we were able to roll out 8 gateways, and there's more coming as we're running a crowdfunding campaign as well, through acquiring sponsorship. So different businesses and individuals have purchased the gateways and donated them or hosting them themselves as part of the community. But we're able to attract a actual telecommunications provider called Sigfox, which has a large coverage area across Perth, and also offer the community free access with a limited up to 10 devices, but free access to innovate and learn. So the project, we set out initially to future-proof Perth with skill sets and mindsets. And to do that, we would enable them to innovate, learn, and demonstrate the value of Internet of Things at a very low cost. So it's about getting people prepared. So we needed to reduce that cost barrier. And having a commercial network come to the project and offer the community a comparable, opportunity. We now actually have 2 networks, one community-owned and one commercially owned, that the community can use for free to innovate and learn and build devices upon. And the good thing about this is if there is no cost in gathering data, it is more likely that individuals will share that data. And if people do share the data, then there's opportunity to innovate across industries because you're collecting different types of data sets.
It will be a very interesting pathway, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious question on most people's minds, and one I get a lot, is what sort of applications can you build on a IoT communications network? Because that's the $1 million question. Councils and government services, they can use IoT to check when and where to dispatch services, like garbage collection, for instance. But the real value of IoT is realized, as I mentioned, by sharing data across industries. So that will spur sort of new breakthrough innovations, services that have never existed before.
Yes.
You can imagine the rural and agricultural industry may be making use of information from other industries, the flight paths or bird migrations or who knows. But you don't know until you collect these data sets and let people analyze them. So I guess I encourage anyone who's come across our project to actually start imagining what sort of problems you can solve with a broad knowledge of where and when something is happening. And then think about what would you do if you could actually intervene before that happens. Because that's the capability that IoT ultimately provides. I think IoT sensors themselves, just for everyone's information, they can detect things like changes in light, changes in movement, chemical composition, sound vibration, pressure, humidity, and with the analysis of this sort of data, it's possible to detect events before they happen, and then actually use that same network to activate IoT actuators or robotics to do something. And this might be in the form of something as simple as turning off a solenoid that's supplying water or gas or air, opening access to a restricted area, or notifying a third party, such as an emergency response service or a hospital, to be on standby. Or, like, for instance, if you could monitor pollen count in the air across the city, we could actually see that there might be, a wave of potential asthma attacks coming through, and we could notify emergency wards to be on the alert for people who have allergies to high pollen counts or something like that.
It will be very interesting, Tom, to see what emerges over time. For people who have struck a chord listening to you today, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, the easy thing is to Google my name, because we have a lot of different projects that pop up. So that's Tom Zorde, spelled Zorde. And if you just Google that with Perth IoT, you'll get all sorts of stuff. But one of the things that we are looking for is more involvement in the community, and people can involve themselves either by coming to our meetups, which you'll find in Google, or sponsoring the project financially, which we have a GoFundMe crowdfunding campaign. So if you want to search for GoFundMe Perth IoT, you'll find that. So we've raised some funds to buy more gateways, and of course, simply just get in contact. Tom@zorde.com is my email. Send me an email, and who knows what can happen. I think we've had a very interesting project, been able to achieve some amazing things in very unconventional ways, because running projects with community volunteers and are trying to attract sponsorship is something I had never done before, and I was quite surprised at how successful that was, and the fact that we've rolled out 8 gateways, which each cover a 10-kilometre radius, plus attracted a commercial network to provide us essentially free internet access right across the broader Perth metropolitan area, to give the citizens of this city, opportunity to tinker and learn and have experiential, hands-on exposure to a technology. I think that's going to shift certainly the future of work in nearly every industry, I think.
Well, we wish you luck with that and look forward to hearing the stories in the future. I do appreciate your time today, Tom. I know you're a busy person. We appreciate you making yourself available to us.
Oh, thank you very much. Anytime.
And if you've just missed my conversation with Tom Zorde, the founder and board chair of the Perth Internet of Things Communication Network, the good news is, on our website you can read a transcript. You can also listen to an audio archive of the whole interview on SoundCloud, YouTube and iTunes, and all of the links to that are on our website at www.talkers.fm. You are listening to Talkers.fm. My name is Wayne Buckler.